Hello, everyone. Sorry I was a bit late. I was caught up doing something else, and time passes so quickly, doesn't it? And now it's my first stream in a week. It wasn't that I couldn't stream. It's just that I thought sometimes um, when an obstruction is put in your way, you think maybe you should be doing something else for a bit. And basically, that was what I was doing. And I was on Facebook, um, and I think Facebook is just a much better medium for analyzing ideas rather than just yakking away when people just listen to your voice and they just let your words and voice wash over them without particularly being analytical. And I think actually reading words, whether on the screen or on a piece of paper, helps focus our minds on what the meaning of the word actually is. And and I think if we properly focused on ideas and meanings and the construction of sentences, we would better serve ourselves by avoiding all kinds of obvious mistakes. Um, so I think I've made some progress, although, of course, it's very difficult to um, present any kind of uh, what I regard as progress in a way that would seem tangible to skeptics and um, or perhaps opponents would take it more seriously, like losing subscribers and um, having one less follower and that kind of thing. I mean, these are, I suppose, what we might regard as objective measures of one's milestones towards our ultimate destination. And of course, anyone embarked on a political journey is always on a lonely and perilous journey. So I hope those of you who are watching will have looked at the post that I timestamped on my exchange between John and me on Week in Review with Duvid and Church of Entropy. And I think it's important to first digest the arguments. There were some exchanges that, so it's not a great surprise to me. In fact, I actually anticipated it when John converted to Islam. I kind of was telling him that don't expect too much and actually expect more restrictions on your ability to say and do things because once you convert, you feel you feel you can't go back without losing face, and then the people the religion you convert to, the community you're trying to join will they'll be welcoming until they think you're breaking the rules. And I often wonder whether I would convert for political reasons. And I thought, well, A, it would be hypocritical. B, you would actually annoy the people that you convert into because, you'll be wanting to say all kinds of heresies and they'll disapprove of you and think, how dare you, you've just arrived, how dare you tell them this, how dare you question their way of doing things. And apart from the usual the what's the word the reasonable caution that one ought to have about doing something as life changing in theory as converting to a new religion. We should be mindful of what the downside of things. And I think once you're trying to join a group, you will be capable. You will be put in a position of, well, are you one of us or not? If you're one of us, shut up, follow the rules, or just get out. And I'm, very well aware of, what the Muslim communities do to each other, and they will certainly do that to you if you're a convert. And once you convert, you can't go back to your previous friends without losing face. And I think, John may well be in a bind because now he's doing his thing of, what was he saying? Saying prayers in Arabic on his YouTube channel, learning Arabic. Well, that's not political activism as far as I'm concerned. And political activism is about saying stuff, arguing with people, making your point again and again and again, even though you're being a bore. And that's just the nature of the beast. And if you can't deal with it, then I guess you're not suited for it. And it did occur to me that I should. I didn't warn him. It flashed across my mind that I should tell him that it's not going to be smooth sailing. But I don't think even if I said anything, he would care, because he'll be saying, yeah, you're doing this because you're... So I kept silent. And when he converted, I congratulated him. And of course, the reason why I don't convert is because I don't want anyone in the mosque saying, you can't tell us, you better toe the line, or you can't come to the mosque anymore. I mean, not that I would want to come to the mosque, but, I'm assuming that, my status would be raised for some reason if I were to join a mosque. And I know that it would actually be contradicting the whole premise of secular Koranism, which is that it's a legal system, and it's a legal system that you, a non-Muslim, could support if you want to restore the patriarchy. And this is a message I have been repeating ad nauseum, I might add, because a lot of people who do follow, who are my Facebook friends would know the frequency with which I have expressed these particular points and made these points, and even the pattern of my discourse. To the extent that they have called me a bore. But, there are shocking things when it's when David said, I don't know if he's doing it deliberately or not, but, I keep saying secular Koranism is a legal system. It's a legal system. It's not a belief system. And the difference between a legal system and a belief system is this. A belief system means you have to believe this thing, this narrative. So if secular Koranism, I mean, okay, it wouldn't be called secular Koranism if I made this thing into a cult of Claire, for example. So, it's sort of like, Church of Entropy, you have to believe that, she's this incarnation of a Hindu sage. And I kind of toyed with the idea of saying, well, I could be the incarnation of Solon, the Athenian poet and statesman, who reformed the laws of Athens, and I would require you, if you wanted to join it would have to be a cult. And I don't want it to be a cult. I don't want a cult. There is a religion good enough for our purposes, and what I'm doing, trying to do anyway, with secular Koranism is to say that this religion has a holy book from which a legal system can be created, and I'm saying my version of it is secular Koranism. There are other versions, other forms of Sharia, Maliki, Hanafi, Hanbali, all the other schools of Sharia. And I'm saying, really, secular Koranism is a school of Sharia for the West, under my interpretation. And this is all you need to understand. And the most important thing about secular Koranism that you should understand is that it guarantees freedom of belief. So immediately you in your European country would get the First Amendment that you wouldn't otherwise get from your corrupt, oppressive governments. I mean, not that it seems to be helping the Americans much, because in practice, social media platforms flout the First Amendment, and because America is, already a matriarchy. There is no leadership amongst men. The men at the top are too afraid to challenge feminism. So these beta males are in effect leaderless and directionless, and they're basically women who can't organize themselves. They can only bitch like women, and then not do anything except apart from perpetrating the occasional act of terrorism or violence. That's all they can do. And I'm suggesting let's do it another way. Let's keep asking questions and demanding answers, and then eventually enough people might care. And I've framed it in such a way that it's easy to ask and easy to engage in. But John, because he's he doesn't want to alienate his Muslim community, he actually admitted on the stream that these Muslims are afraid of secular Koranism. So, well, I knew that. I've engaged with Muslims before. I've engaged with ordinary Muslims who know nothing or virtually nothing about their religion. They haven't even read it in English or even their own language. They think just reciting it in Arabic is enough to, get it through their heads about what the Quran actually says. So most of them are actually ignorant of their own religion, ignorant of their own holy book. I actually know more, and I've spoken to Muslim scholars who actually admit that my knowledge is not bad at all. And added to that, I am legally trained, so I can understand the import and of rules and how to manipulate them. So arguably, I am more knowledgeable about the Quran than the average Muslim who probably has never read it in his or her life, or has never been told to question it. Or wouldn't be encouraged to question it. And as for the scholars I've spoken to, I did talk to a white convert called, what's his name, Clark. This was some years ago, and he basically blocked me on Facebook. He wanted to protect his students from my dangerous idea of secular Koranism, and I've got the posts on Voice of Reason to demonstrate his fear and horror that anybody else should seek to interpret the Quran in the way that I have, and I have to follow slavishly what all the Muslims did wrong. And obviously these Muslims did lots of things wrong. Otherwise, why else would they be living as migrant workers in a foreign country, being treated as second-class citizens, being tarred as terrorists? So obviously they didn't do whatever they were supposed to be doing right. So and the point is, what I'm saying is that I don't care what they think. I mean, I've tried to reach out to them, but they treat me as if, well, it's like, oh, this kuffar woman, we can just ignore her. We don't need to talk to her. And anyway, it's a bit dangerous for us to be seen to be talking to her, so we won't. So these so-called Muslims, they're scared, they're cowardly, they're hypocritical, and there's not much point talking to them either. So I've talked to kind of ordinary Muslims, they always say, oh, but what do I know? I know nothing. The Manuel, Manuel in Faulty Towers in that one particular episode when he just played dumb and said he knew nothing when I think it was a bit of money that Basil Fawlty entrusted him with on some winnings on a horse. So, if you're dealing with people who just play dumb, there's no point talking to them. But unfortunately, a lot of Islamic intellectuals, they don't want to engage. They don't want to be seen to engage. And they don't want to say anything clearly in case it upsets too many people. We know what happened to Zakir Naik when he said a few things very clearly. So he's in exile, and I guess, these other Muslims don't want to suffer that fate. Now, so I'm approaching these some rabbis, and so John mocks me for thinking I'm going to find some magic rabbi who's going to, care about the Gentile. I mean, the annoying thing is that he never really discussed it with me properly. But I think that's probably not his intention. I understand it that he what he wants is to just snuggle up to his Muslim community and for them to accept him. And I'm doing this thing that makes it hard for him. So he wants to cut me loose. Fine. I understand. I don't have a problem with that. And it's not going to change anything I'm going to say or do. I do understand that not everybody can do what I want to do with the focus that I think they ought to have. They have their lives, they have their stresses, they have their jobs, they have their other relationships to consider, and probably they don't believe that much, and so that is absolutely fine. And of course, he has to, make a few false accusations about me, saying I want to fuse Torah law with Islamic law. I really actually don't know where it came from, but he said it, and I never had a chance to question him on that, and he probably doesn't want to be questioned on it. It was just something he had to scrape from the bottom of the barrel to kind of, find an excuse. When really the reasons are, really not about my accommodation of LGBTs, and without actually going against the rules of the Quran. So I'm basically saying the ostensible reason that he calls me hypocritical is because I said Secular Koranist and accommodates the gay community, and to the extent that it will be hunting them down and just trying to arrest them just for talking in a gay accent or mincing around or whatever. People have got better things to do. So basically, if you're convicted of extramarital sex and you're heterosexual, the punishment doesn't kick in until you are until the illegitimate offspring that you're not meant to have without a marriage certificate is born. So within that constraint, I think you can probably still have extramarital sex if that's your game. And for gay men, you're not really punished until you are witness committing a lewd act with another man. So I think if you're reasonably discreet and you're not caught cottaging, you can probably have the kind of sex you want. And then, as for lesbians, there is this curious requirement to have more than 4 witnesses to see, as to their lewd act with one another. And so, so within the rules of the Quran itself, I think quite a lot of sexual liberation can be enjoyed. And of course, brothels would be legal because prostitution is not, in fact, illegal. So what we have is there is a verse I forget which 43:5 or something, and it says, "Do not compel your slave girls into prostitution." And implicit in that is that prostitution is legal. Slavery is legal, but don't compel your slave girls into prostitution. So, okay, you if they want to do it willingly, then obtain their manumission, then that's allowed according to the Quran. So my reasoning is this: if a slave girl can become a prostitute, all the more can a free woman become a prostitute, because whatever right a slave girl has, and a slave girl has the right to say no, 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 I will not be a prostitute to obtain manumission. Then you have to give her the another option to do that. So if a slave girl says, I don't want to be a prostitute, or she wants to be a prostitute, she can be, and then all the more should a free woman be allowed to become a prostitute. And this is the kind of legal reasoning I'm talking about. I know a lot of these more ignorant Muslims can't deal with my logic. They're not lawyers. They just get upset. But yeah, I mean, this is the level of my discourse. And if they're not up to it, if they're not able to cope with the subtleties and nuances of my legal reasoning, then I guess we'll just have to leave them behind. And it seems that John is not up to it either, or he's just using that as an excuse to break away. That's fine. I mean, obviously, I can't keep anyone who doesn't want to be allied with me, either for political or personal and social reasons. And that's absolutely fine. But I was also explaining my strategy, which is very, very simple, and anybody can do it. And I hope those of you who actually want to, live in a reasonably advanced, society, you should ask yourself. It's a philosophical question, and you can, and that's why I think it's so attractive as a kind of opening. At parties, at dinner parties, you can ask people what religion is for. And they'll all have ideas. They don't, it doesn't have to be my view. I mean, although, of course, I think I have the correct answer. It's like people want to talk about these things. So it's so easy, and this is what I suggest that he does. And, he can't do it. So, we'll just have to agree to disagree. I mean, I don't know what he thinks he's going to do. Learning Arabic. I don't know. And I think that there is, a lot of progress that can be made, because really, if you live in a declining civilization, if you think your government is not governing you properly, and you think your political system is failing, you're entitled to ask each other, what do you think? What religion is for? And the most interesting thing I've noticed when I raise the subject with political activists who identify themselves as nationalists is that they don't want to talk about it. And you might think, that's because they're bored. But actually, no. I mean, it's a subject that they can't bring themselves to discuss because they're atheists. And they also know, they think, actually, a lot of people can. They understand how I think, in a way. I mean, I've had friends who they break off a friendship because they already know how I'm going to think on the subject, and rather than quarrel with me, they break it off, before they even do it. So I get it. I suppose I should take it as a compliment. It's like they already know how I would feel on the subject before they even tell me, what they're proposing to do. And because they don't want to do, because they don't want to be reasoned, because, with, they don't want to debate it, they just avoid the, I guess my questioning. And I think it's probably something to do with that. So I hope, if anyone is thinking of using extra parliamentary means to get their way, well, that certainly wouldn't have my support. I'm all about doing things peacefully, and obviously, but I'm not saying, well, we'll just, keep taking the shit and, not never fight back and just, turn all our cheeks to be slapped, all four of them. I'm just saying, before you think of any extra parliamentary means, you must explore all the peaceful avenues. And this is what I propose. You keep asking questions. You get other people to ask the same question until the whole nation, the entire imperium, asks exactly the same question about what's wrong with their government, what's wrong with their politicians, and what religion is for, and how do you know if your religion has failed? And how do you choose a religion if you have none but think you might need one? And what it's supposed to be doing for you? So, well, what's wrong with that? It seems. It seems pretty uncontroversial to me and well within the law, unless the government is going to stop us from having a philosophical discussion. Mind you, we know what happened to Socrates, don't we? Citizen Reporter, did you read my link? It's actually in the description, so you can read my timestamps of what was said in Week in Review, um, and what I find. There's so many obvious questions that I never followed up, and it's so frustrating. Maybe I just, have a kind of brain that asks the obvious question that I think anybody listening would want to hear asked. So when John accused me of hypocrisy, I would expect Duva to say, in what way is Claire being hypocritical? But he never did, and then he assumed that secular Koranism is some little sect of Islam, when it's actually a legal system. So it's so Duva was making this category error, and I tried to correct him. I don't know if he got it or not. So, but anyway, it's helpful. It's helpful to even talk to people who disagree with you, who either have misunderstood you or are deliberately misunderstanding you, because you can make your point again and again until enough people that are listening in, who are engaged with your discourse, they get it too. So I'm all right about that. Um, and of course, it's always interesting to know, who can stay the course, who can't, and for what reasons, and whatever. So I guess really, the other thing, apart from wanting to fit in with this, new Muslim community and not wanting to alienate them through association with me and my radical ideas of secular Quranism, which even alarms Muslims. And I think it's good. It's good that it alarms Muslims, because people will know that Muslims don't quite agree with it. So just to I think people need to kind of know a list of things about secular Quranism before they understand what it is. And although they're not paying attention and they don't really care, they need to. They'll probably have, oh, Muslims, they don't like it, they don't accept it. Why doesn't Claire convert to Islam? And no, I've just told you the reason is that there's no point, because it Secular Koranism, you don't have to be a Muslim to support secular Koranism, provided you want to restore the patriarchy, and provided you want to restore the patriarchy. You'd be surprised at the number of nationalists who don't want to do that. They just don't want to do that because it means forbidding extramarital sex, and they'll be thinking, well, how am I going to get my rocks off? Or, well, does that mean I have to pay prostitutes to get sex? No way. I'm far too cheap and poor to pay for a prostitute. So you get, men like that who are too poor and cheap to pay for a prostitute, if they can't get a wife. And I'm just saying, yeah, this is the brave new world that I am proposing will be your antidote to matriarchy. And it's okay, you don't have to like it, but at least people get it. People get it about the sacrifice that would be required to restore the patriarchy, which they unthinkingly and carelessly dismantled and destroyed with their sexual liberation that they kept accepting from the feminazis to distract them from the destruction of the basis of their civilization. And my role is simply to point this out. And, if they don't want to listen, fine. I just want it on record that I tried to tell you guys and you weren't interested because you're too degenerate to care, because you're atheists and you think, well, even if what Claire says is true, civilization as it is will last us maybe 10, 20 years. And by that time, I'll probably be dead. I don't care. I don't care what happens to society after I'm dead. But they'll be thinking like that, especially these, confirmed bachelors who will never become married fathers. They don't want to risk anything, because if they, said anything that resembled what I said, they would probably be condemned by their political associates, and they're not going to risk that. So, like John is, he's tired of that. He doesn't want to, he thinks Islam is big enough for him to kind of snuggle under, and I think he'd be surprised at the number of quiescent and weak Muslims who just don't want to do any of this. They don't want to enjoin good or forbid evil. They don't want to admonish those who think God has begotten a son. They don't want to do any of that. They think it's up to somebody else to do it. So, up to you, John. You want to become a Muslim and give up your political activism? Go ahead. I know what I want to do. Citizen reporter, I know a lot of, traditional societies have certain views of prostitutes. I'm just saying, look, go buy the book. It's what it says. You're supposed to believe in your book, and it's like they can't do it. It's like we're supposed to hate prostitutes, so we don't care if they die, even if our Quran says, it's like, they can't be reasoned with, and actually very few people can be reasoned with. Very few people can understand the subtleties of my thinking, and those who do often pretend that they don't get it. So they don't have to argue, and so they don't have to lose the argument with me. And unfortunately, it is the case that a lot of people are, they don't argue in good faith. They will tell blatant lies. They will rely on irrational arguments just because they can, just because they're in the majority, and they don't care about morality. And that this is really the problem with Christians. It's like, yeah. Let me tell you about this. So what I'm doing on Facebook is talking about the Trinity, please go and follow and like my page. So this guy was saying, "Oh, you're mad," when I was talking about the Trinity, and predictably I say, "Well, what have I said that's untrue, illogical, or immoral?" And I never get an intelligible answer. Let me find that post for you. Oh, I see, deleted it. That would be a shame, because it was quite revealing, really. Oh, damn, I can't find it now. Let me try again, because it's quite important, really. I'll look at it slowly and carefully so I haven't missed it, to make sure I haven't missed it. Oh no, I can't find it. But basically, he was saying, but I know which post it was, but then I shared it so many places. Sorry about the dead air. So, those of you who know my pattern of discourse will know that I'm saying, look, Christianity is idolatry. It's been forbidden since the time of Moses. Christians just completely flouted that rule and then denied that what they were doing is idolaters. Jews and Muslims know Christians to be idolaters. Christians didn't care because basically they could always win the argument by using violence, which they did again and again and again, or state intimidation. So in that way, they won the argument, but with their blasphemy laws and that kind of thing. Over the centuries, Jews and Muslims got afraid of contradicting them until eventually even Christians themselves no longer believed in it. And but the people, I mean, who say things like, I'll affirm a lie if it makes me a member of the gang. I'll say Jesus is God. If it makes me mainstream, and one of the boys, and he actually said that. So lots of people will be prepared to tell lies if it benefits them, and so this is what he did. Now I found it. So in my post about the Archbishop of Canterbury, I'm saying on Facebook that I thought I saw him on the London Underground some years ago, because I recognise his face, and he was, it was obviously not dressed up as the Archbishop of Canterbury. He was wearing an ordinary red and blue and white checked shirt. And I remember that pattern, and I know that this is quite a popular shirt with men of a certain class, and I've got a copy of the actual shirt, which is still on sale. Savile Row Shirts are its manufacturers, So I got somebody saying, "Oh, you're completely nuts, but I like you and find you fascinating." So I said, "Oh, why do you think I'm nuts?" And he said, "Theological abstractions are not worth worrying about. In my experience, they are a sort of placeholder for something real that is never discussed." Okay, I can't, in last week when I was talking about these, when I was having these theological discussions, basically lots of people who like using long words to bamboozle, to confuse others and themselves, in order to basically argue for doing nothing and saying everything's all right. So, so the Trinity, according to this person, who, by the way, I mean, yeah, he's friendly enough, and but it's like, yeah, the charming, friendly people, they're not going to stick their necks out to do anything. They're not going to sacrifice anything. They can't, it's like they don't know what a principle is, let alone defend it. They don't know how to defend a principle. It's like, oh, okay, people don't agree with me. Well, better give up and shut up then. So, to to him, the Trinity, idolatry, is a theological abstraction and not worth worrying about. Now, you can take 2 points. Okay, if you're an atheist, and I suspect he is, well, I think he must be, really. I mean, just to say, oh, it doesn't matter if you worship one God, you worship three gods, who cares, But this is how an atheist thinks. But, for an adherent of the Abrahamic faiths, it's like, well, you've got to believe in God in this way, and because if you believe that the Abrahamic God exists, then worshiping any other god is idolatry, and and that's been forbidden, and he'll be angry, that kind of thing. So if you really believe in that, then obviously you're going to be thinking like that. And and they're sort of in these in betweeny people. Oh, I believe in God, and I said, okay, but what about his laws? Oh, no, 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 I don't believe in his laws. So it's like, you get all these people allowed to take their completely nonsensical positions. It's like, either you believe in the Abrahamic God who gave us these laws, or you don't. You know, you can't have it both ways. But then I actually know somebody who said, "Oh, I believe in God, and I'm Christian, even though I don't believe in the Trinity, and this is my religion, even though nobody else shares his beliefs." It's like they just take up any word and then they use it for their own purposes, even though it's actually wrong. And they just carry on and nobody tells them off, and and they think, yeah, I got away with it. I got away with just taking a word, twisting it out of its real meaning and making it serve my purpose and giving me status. So my personal philosophy has become my religion. And I said, no, 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 it can never be your religion. A religion is something that more than one person has to subscribe to, a group has to subscribe to. Your personal beliefs or whatever can never be a religion. But it's like it falls into say, it's just words. I feel good when I worship this God, and I don't want to obey his laws, and I don't want to admit anything that I did was ever wrong. And so you get a whole country full of people doing exactly this, and then you understand why nothing can move, why nothing will ever change, because that's how they think. It's like, well, you and whose army is going to is going to change my mind? Who are you to tell me what to do? That sort of shit. So back to the point of idolatry. So he's saying theological abstractions are not worth worrying about. So what he calls theological abstractions, I would call the principle of the thing. So, it's like, well, if you're taking this whole Abrahamic God thing seriously, then you would care that he has forbidden idolatry. And if you are Christian, an Anglican, or a Catholic, then you ought to be concerned that you've been practicing idolatry, not just you alone, but your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors for how many centuries now? You ought to be concerned. And if you're saying, oh, who cares? Then you don't care about the principle of the thing. Okay, this is it. That's the way. So it's like, yeah, oh, we got away with it. So you're saying, yeah, we got away with it. God didn't do anything to us after 2,000 years. And I thought, well, he can take his time, can't he? I mean, if he exists, he can play all these cosmic jokes on us. And there's actually quite a good Jewish joke about. Okay, let me try and tell you it now. I don't want to mess it up because it's a bit complicated. So I'll find it for you. But okay, so if God, if he exists, he would be testing us, because that's the whole point, the whole system of this belief in the afterlife and obeying God's laws is that, these things are sent to try us. You know all these rules, and God will sort of send you temptations, and you're supposed to resist them. And if you don't resist them, then you kind of lost the game. You've lost points, and you may not get into heaven. That kind of thing. I found the joke. So this is an example of a cosmic joke that God might be playing on us. A man walked to the top of the hill to talk to God. The man asked, God, what's 1,000,000 years to you? And God said, a minute. Then the man asked, well, what's $1,000,000 to you? And God said, a penny. Then the man asked, God, can I have a penny? And God said, sure, in a minute. You get it? You get it? So he can play a lot of cosmic jokes on us. And basically, you could interpret it to mean that God is giving us lots and lots of rope. Citizen reporters accusing me of being Jewish. Why? Just because I like Jewish jokes. I understand the Jewish mind. Does that make me Jewish? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, okay. I think it might be to do with my legal training, because the whole point of your legal training is that you can understand how a rule system works and predict the how a judge might decide something or other. So maybe that's why you think. Connor's is saying SK is cucked. I think the opposite. I think he's cucked, but he's either cucked or thinking of pursuing extra parliamentary ways of getting his way, and I don't think it's necessary. I think we can all peacefully ask our philosophical questions of our politicians and ask them what religion is for. And we can ask each other what religion is for. I think that would be an excellent way of making our dinner parties and our pub conversations and our social conversations much more interesting. So this is what I encourage you all to do. If John doesn't want to do that, it's up to him. But what I propose is actually very easy, but he doesn't want to because he wants to snuggle up to his new Muslim community, and I can't be snuggled up to because I'm here and he's in Canada, something like that. So, um, well, I guess I might be accused of trying to read God's mind, but I mean, the fact is that it does make an awful lot of sense, in my view, if you um, consider, entertain the Abrahamic narrative for a moment. So, I think, the whole. I think we will always be given a choice to believe or not. And the evidence is 50-50. It will always be 50-50. And this is to make us choose to believe or not believe um, out of, um, because, okay, it's a moral and political choice whether to believe in God and obey his laws. The assumption is that once you believe in God, you have to obey his laws. And obviously, if you don't want to obey his laws, you'll disbelieve in him and justify it by saying, well, I don't see any proof of God's laws. Sorry, I don't see any proof of God's existence, so it would be foolish for me to obey God's laws and miss out all the fun I could be having sex with lots of people who are not my spouse. And I'd feel, so angry with myself if I just lived this life and I didn't screw around as to the extent that I wanted, and then I died, and that was it, and I just feel so stupid. So I'm gonna deny the existence of God, and I'm just gonna screw around and not have children and be gay and just have all kinds of sexual shenanigans and just basically not care what happens to society after I'm dead, because we only have one life, and I'm going to enjoy all the hedonism I can in my only life on earth, and so you would be on the side of the matriarchy. Now, those who see the wisdom of God's laws, who are grateful for the advanced civilization they live in, and they don't want to be despised by posterity for just trashing it and being so stupid and degenerate as to allow the shit of feminism and matriarchy to and the sewage to just go over their heads without any shame. They might want to make some sort of attempt to fight it or challenge it or just go through the motions at any rate of asking a few pertinent questions. But it seems that they can't, can they, Connaughts? You just can't do it. It's not, and this is a problem, because my theory is that sexual corruption leads to moral corruption. So it's like, I don't care. I don't care what happens after I'm dead. Why should I care what happens? And if I don't have children, well, just don't care. Just don't care. So, um, so you have all these men, the middle class men, educated men, and they don't care. It's like, yeah, I might have a kid if I'm lucky. It'll be a bastard, but I don't care. As long as I've had some sort of biological trace, but I don't want to look after it. I don't want to pay for it. I don't even want to fight for the right to have paternal control over it. I just don't give a damn. I mean, that would be kind of Connaughts' way of doing it. Connaughts is talking about, me not caring about coronavirus. You can't argue against me, Connaughts. You can't argue against me when I told you that Europeans were fine after the bubonic plague. Were they fine? They were fine. They even enjoyed, the working classes even enjoyed a high wages, and they went on to, they did a whole bunch of stuff after the bubonic plague. So I don't know what you guys are worried about. Few extra people dead from the coronavirus, and lots of people who get it and live. But it's because you're atheists and you're carrying on like that. And the Chinese too, the atheists. I mean, the Chinese have gone soft in the head as well. Them with their one child families. It's like, oh my God, I can't have any more if I lose this one kid I have. So I'm gonna make fuss about it. Just shut everything down so I can feel that I'm doing my best thing for my only kid. And that's what they're doing. It's like, and also what I've noticed about Chinese people, I've been talking to a few of them lately, and okay, I've had two opposing views. I mean, and one thinking, it was all right when we played God last time with SARS and everything, and that's the thing. It's, you don't know, you don't really know what to do, but the point is that if the Chinese were pre one child policy time, when most Chinese people had quite a few children, I mean, they were kind of Catholic in a way, going forth and multiplying, and just doing all the the patriarchy thing, which obviously the Chinese were doing. I mean, obviously, being a patriarchy that won't really protect you from all the kind of shit you might get if you do lots of things wrong like the Chinese did. But the point is that it gives you the wherewithal to recover. If you've had a ruinous war or ruinous famine, and if you're all wiped out, then that's the end of you guys. But if you have a few people capable of replenishing the population, and tidying things up and dusting yourselves off, then you would be okay after suffering a reverse. So I'm saying that the Chinese would be rather more nonchalant about these instances of pestilence and contagious diseases, because it does happen. I mean, I've spoken to a doctor. It's like, every now and then you get some epidemic of some little thing, and it's like, it's normal. It's part of the human cycle, the biological cycle of. I guess it would be a kind of, I don't know. I mean, there's a word for it. I think of. It's a kind of biological arms race, I suppose. It's like the viruses. They know we have antibiotics and whatever, but they also get cleverer in order to attack us. And I mean, it might be something to do with eating kosher and eating halal, and maybe it's not such a good idea to eat everything. But of course, the Chinese have this culture of doing that because of the periodic famines they would experience. Because on the one hand, it's good to have a large population because you can do things with them, and obviously, you kind of, what you do is you make them form armies, and you make them invade other countries, and they become part of your empire. You know how it works, really. So that's what I think was the secret of the success of the Chinese. And of course, they have the religion of ancestor worship that is designed to keep them having sons and multiplying, to give the emperor a constant supply of cannon fodder with which to increase his empire, or at any rate, guard it. And this is really, how it is. This is how nations compete with each other, through technological advance, through population, and through, of course, the ideological weapon that is religion. I'm not suggesting that for one moment that there will be no war, even if all the countries of the world adopted secular Koranism. I don't think it's possible anyway, and I don't think it's intended. What global secular Koranism would do would be to make warfare less awful. So, it's really a practical ideology, and of course, a lot of lily-livered white Europeans can't deal with the fact that the Quran talks about war. The Torah talks about war. It talks about exterminating the Amalekites. But of course, it does. It's like, oh, Muslims kill their enemy in battles. That's horrible. That's disgusting. It's like, yeah, and the Americans need two Japanese cities full of non-combatants. Oh, that's okay. And it's like they don't even know their racism, but I just don't think they should be able to get away with it any longer with their crazy methods of one rule for them and another for others, and it's like you're talking about the most militaristic nations on earth, and they can't cope with a holy book that mentions battle orders and the rules of war. I mean, it is truly laughable. I mean that's probably because they think, oh, Jesus was kind and he never hurt a fly and whatever. And coming back to the question of Christianity, it has to be understood again and again that it is Christianity that is the odd one out of the Abrahamic faiths. So really, you have to think of the revealed religions, revealed in the sense that they have revealed scripture. There are only two world religions that are of this nature, and of course it's Judaism and Islam. So the Torah is for Jews, the Quran is for Gentiles. What is the New Testament? Who knows? It never says anything clearly, and it ain't from God, and it ain't even from Jesus. It's just some mishmash of some letters written by Paul and Tim and Pete and Paul and Mark and Matthew and Luke and Johnny. So, not that reliable. We shouldn't expect it to be reliable. And if you went through the New Testament, you wouldn't be able to find anything that you could use to base your theocracy on. So this is something Christians don't like to discuss. The priesthood certainly wouldn't. So I think it's time to be asking ourselves questions about what religion is for. Is it just to fatten up the corruptible priesthood? I mean, what good do they do? They haven't protected any interests that are worth protecting other than their own. They don't care that they only care that, we've got lots of migrants and they might come to our church. Yay. I mean, who cares that, it's upsetting people who have their wages lowered, who hate and fear uncontrolled immigration, who feel utterly abandoned by their government, and their government actually don't care about them. It's like, shut up, or we'll call you racist. And when we call you racist, your career's over. You're not going to get anything apart from welfare. So, not surprisingly, unprincipled atheists will, that will be enough to threaten unprincipled atheists, like Honots, right? So, So basically, Christians are really not worth talking to. If they stay Christians, they'll just be, hating on Jews and hating on Muslims, and therefore my strategy is really very, very simple. We get the Jews and Muslims to agree that the Torah and the Quran are in fact complementary. And because I work on the basis that the Quran actually, it refers to the Torah. So, without the Torah, there could have been no Quran. And obviously one was based on the other. And so it could be said that Judaism kickstarted a whole bunch of ideas and that civilized the world. Because Christianity and Islam are derived from Judaism. So the originator, the kind of mother religion of the two, is, you can't deny, their connection, even well, they're called the Abrahamic faiths. So I'm saying basically all Jews have to do to perform their religious obligation to be light unto the nations, which is to promote the no-hide laws, is to recommend a no-hide religion. And that would be Islam or, secular Koranism, because it's based on the Quran. As for Christianity, I think it is worse than idolatry. It's actually blasphemy. It's not just sort of worshipping, something else that isn't God. It's actually saying that the thing that you worship is also God. So the Jews call it Avodah Zarah and Shituf, but unfortunately they diluted their own principles because they wanted to do business with Christian. They wanted to have Christian business partners, and so somehow they had to dilute the principle and say, oh, perhaps it's okay for Christians to be idolatrous, or just some, kind of mealy mouth thing. So now the kind of being put in a position where they can't turn around, or they feel they can't go around and say, well, you've been. I'm afraid you're still idolatrous, and we didn't mean what we said when we said you were okay. But yeah, you can find hints of it when you certainly online saying, well, Jews aren't allowed to go into churches because they are places of abomination where idolatry is practiced. I mean, Jews who are engineers, if they have to go to some fix lights and do stuff in church, just for their work. I mean, they're not supposed to go in there. They're actually not supposed to go in there. So those who take their religion seriously are supposed to, well, not go in. And yeah, I've read a few questions from Jews saying, "Oh, come on, we paid for our holiday to Venice. We want to see St. Mark's." And then the rabbi would say, well, you can't go to the bit where they pray, but maybe you can, look at the bits where, which is used for purposes other than prayer, but you really can't go in there where it's, full of idols and of a mother and his baby and a man on the stick. You can't go in. You're not supposed to. It says, the rules say that you're not supposed to go in. And this debate even exists to this day. Depending on how observant the Jews are. And this is something that Christians ought to bear in mind. It's like, yeah, I know you don't care. It's like, oh, well, what's a bit of, it's the ancestor of our religion of our ancestors, and we've been doing it for so long, and it's sacred to us. The memory of it is sacred to us. And I'm saying, I don't think God will look upon it like that. It will, I think he will say, like, well, you know about the Ten Commandments, don't you? You know what it says, and you know what you're doing, and you think you're going to get away with it, with your globo homo and your centuries of sin. Well, I mean, obviously, if you don't believe he exists, you'll think, oh, we'll be fine. We won't get coronavirus. We won't die, or I don't know, maybe a few, pricklings of your conscience where found will kind of make you feel a little uneasy about the way you and your government have been going about things. I mean, it's interesting listening to the streams of Rabbi Mizrahi. I mean, the way these ultra Orthodox Jews are carrying on, it's like 2020. It might be the end. The Messiah might arrive. Rabbi Mizrahi is saying 50,000 people have caught the virus, and apparently the Chinese are just, killing people and throwing them into a pit or something. So I don't know how true that is. Well, if that's happening, well, that's terrible. But there are quite a few people who do survive, and I think we've had these epidemics before, and the thing is, even if it wiped out quite a few of us, there'll be enough of us to survive and carry on, and perhaps a bit chastened, and maybe thinking it was something that came from God or whatever, and change their behavior and change their government and change their way of thinking. Maybe, I don't know. But I think 2020 it will be a significant year. I feel quite cheered about it, really. Because I don't know, I just sort of feel in my boat that a lot of things are going to be happening, and obviously it's darkest before dawn. Things have to get worse before they get better. But I just wanted you to know that I'm I just really wouldn't be bothered, even if okay, the hypothetical situation is that that there will that there aren't any secular Koranists, and I'm just saying that's it's not going to change my behavior. It's not going to change my behavior. And if people are going to say, oh well, I'm not going to be a secular Koranist anymore, well, they will usually give a reason, even if it's not the real reason, and it will be interesting to see the form it takes. Like, obviously that they'll have to find something, they'll have to pick a fight or whatever, and I want to thank John Gishler for saying he'll become a secular Koranist. I haven't actually asked him why. I don't know. I sense a kind of conflict there. Just because he said he wasn't a supporter, so I was taken aback. But obviously delighted that he said he would take John's place. And I'm very grateful to all of you who take an interest in my ideas and follow my fortunes. And what I've been doing also, which I actually really enjoyed and can't stop myself from doing, is the memes. And I really have enjoyed them. And I should send you the link, I suppose, to all my latest memes. And of course, I'll be making some more. But come and ask me questions on Ask FM, and yeah, I'll be putting them out on Facebook. So follow me on Facebook. I've already had a my previous account deactivated, because even though I didn't break the rules, Facebook didn't like the cut of my jib. And but I think unless it's actually going to stop me from using social media because I am Claire Core, I'll keep on trucking. So I'll have a look at the see if there's any questions in the chat that you've asked me that I've not answered. Connor, why didn't you? Okay, so you obviously missed Week in Review yesterday on Duvet's channel. Okay, no particular questions. Well, anybody who wants to talk to me separately, we can do it in another stream. But I think this stream should be confined to what I've been saying is what worth checking out. Okay, well, thanks for coming by and listening to my stuff and taking an interest in my ideas. I'm always grateful to you